Hi, welcome back, everyone. I want to respond today to something that was said by the president and CEO of the Southern Baptist Convention Executive Committee last week, Dr. Jeff Iorg. He made a speech at their meeting, and there's some things I want to respond to because it doesn't really affect how we do things, but it responds to some changes that our church has made along with a lot of other churches. Obviously, it wasn't about our church. But a lot of churches are doing with their finances they sent to the Southern Baptist Convention, similar to things to what we did. But first I want to say, if you just want to bash the SBC, just don't even finish watching this video. I'm not looking for comments, well, you should leave the SBC. That's not what I'm looking for here. This is an internal debate within the Southern Baptist Convention. If you're not a believer, just skip by. This is internal. This is inside here. But I just want to respond to some things because in a lot of ways, he was attacking the way that we are doing our missions giving in the church. And so this is not against him or against anyone. I just want to respond why we're doing the things that we're doing. So a few years ago, we as a church started looking at how we support the Southern Baptist Convention. And I did a lot of digging. And I found out that usually what people think of when they are supporting the cooperative program of the SBCs, they think this is our missions giving. Well, I started following the money trail, and I realized that most of the money that we give through the cooperative program doesn't even go to missions. Now, here in Indiana, when we give it to the state. That's how you would give to the cooperative program of the SBC. And then 60-something% of the money stays in the state of Indiana for things, and the rest goes to the national SBC, and then from there it gets diverted out to a lot of different agencies. So I got to looking at this and thinking all this money that we send, this church is very giving. East Lake Baptist Church, Crown Point, Indiana. This is a very giving church, and we set aside 16% of our unallocated income to give to missions and things like that. And 3% goes right here to our local association, and then 13% just went to the state, to the whole cooperative program. And we changed that because there are some things in the SBC that we didn't like. We don't like all the legal bills I have to spend on all these sexual abuse allegations that had been being made, and then come to find out it really wasn't happening like they all said it was. The push towards CRT, critical race theory, a few years ago, didn't like that. It's just a lot of things. And then finding out the money isn't actually getting to missionaries. It's getting to a lot of administration, things like that. We want to support the missionaries. And so we totally changed it. We send some to the cooperative program, much less than we did. We used consistently, we were in the top 10, at least in the state of Indiana, as far as numerical giving to the missions, So East Lake was a big giver to the cooperative program. And we stopped a lot of that. We give directly to Lottie Moon now. We give directly to Annie Armstrong. We take offerings for those, plus we give directly to IMB, we give directly to NAM, but we also, that has freed up a lot of other money where we support other outside missionaries, just like an independent Baptist church would do. So it's really helped us, we've really enjoyed it, and we just got tired of just funding the whole huge SBC thing. But a lot of churches are doing that, and Dr. Jeff Iorg gives this speech here to the executive committee, basically saying, this is a problem that churches are doing this, and you guys should just be supporting us and trusting us to put the money where it needs to be. And if you were watching any of the executive or any of the convention this last year, I was there, my wife and I were there. There were some things. One of the things that there is not a lot of is transparency. We don't even know the salary of leaders of these SBC entities, and they want us just to trust just giving money their way. So these are the reasons we just said, no, we'll send some that way. We are a Southern Baptist church. We'll send some that way, but we have other things, and we're more interested in sending the gospel out. So we're going to find ways that we can actually do that more. So I want to respond again, please. This is not against Dr. Iorg. This is not against the Southern Baptists. It's just a response in case, maybe some folks in our church heard that and say, well, why don't we just give directly to the cooperative program, everything? I'm going to respond to a few of the things he says. Okay. So let me just play this, and I'll stop it a few times and see, by the way, yes, his name is Iorg, I-O-R-G. A lot of people pronounce it all kind of ways, but he was here at our church. He did a thing a few years ago with our local association, and so he made sure everybody knows how to pronounce his name. He hasn't been the president very long, though, I don't even know if it's been a year yet. It hasn't been really long. So a lot of the stuff in the SBC, he's inherited, so it's not like well, there are bad things, so it's him. No, he was the president of one of the colleges, one of the seminaries, but he hasn't been in this very long, so he is kind of cleaning up a mess too. So let me just play this and see if this works and see how I can respond to some things.
The Pastors' Conference theme is very similar, the word together, which underscores our commitment to voluntary cooperation. And that leads me to my final set of comments for this evening.
Here we go.
One of the Executive Committee's core responsibilities is managing and distributing Cooperative Program funds to SBC entities. This is becoming more challenging because of how churches and state conventions are changing the definition of the cooperative program giving. For example, so far in 2025, the Executive Committee has received gifts in 33 different alternate, quote-unquote, cooperative program configurations.
Okay, and that's exactly what we do. We send some to the cooperative program, but we also send it to IMB, we send it to NAM. Some places will send it to a lot of different things. So that's exactly what we're doing. Instead of just dumping it in the cooperative program bucket and letting them deal with it, we are being more targeted about where we want it to go. So that's what we're doing. Let's keep playing this.
These include all kinds of delineations, omitting certain entities and directing gifts to other entities. This is more than an accounting challenge. It is redefining the cooperative program as a catch-all phrase, masking a return to an old approach of societal giving. This approach has been rejected by previous generations of SBC leaders as inadequate to fund a vast global mission enterprise. While there are programmatic and political reasons for these current changes, a more important factor is the philosophical commitment underlining these developments.
Okay, so he's onto something here. He's saying the reason that churches are doing it the way we're doing it without just throwing all the money into the cooperative program is because there's a different philosophical commitment. Now, that's true, but how he phrases it, how he discusses a philosophical commitment is totally backwards from the way we're doing it. We are doing it because we want to be more efficient with our funds. He has a different way of looking at it. Listen to this.
Changes in the cooperative program are rooted in a worldview shift that has marked Western culture and unfortunately bled into SBC life. The problem is the fracturing influence of expressive individualism, the dominant worldview of our time.
So notice he's calling this expressive individualism, okay? A worldview, a dominant worldview of our time, he calls it. And he's going to talk bad about expressive individualism, which is basically you doing things the way that you think they should be done.
Expressive individualism is the root of cultural developments ranging from obsessive sharing on social media to convincing children they can choose their own gender. It is the worldview which demands mass customization and at the same time fuels aggressive tribalism. Southern Baptists live in this cultural milieu and are being influenced by it. This is troubling because expressive individualism is theologically and philosophically antithetical to cooperation, which is the theological and philosophical foundation of our combined efforts.
Okay, so the translation is that diverting money from the cooperative program as a whole into certain entities means that you're falling prey to expressive individualism that is the same thing that causes people to want to change their gender. Now, I really don't like that connection there. There's no connection here. We are trying to further the gospel by actually giving to more efficient places rather than just dumping it all into the cooperative program budget. So I think that's unfair to say, well, the same thing that causes people to want to change their gender is the same reason churches are pulling their support directly from the cooperative program. I think that to me is probably one of the most way off base things in this whole thing. It's very, it doesn't indicate what actually is going on. Obviously, he wants the money in the cooperative program because then they can control where it all goes. And I don't mean to say that disparagingly, but they trust themselves. We, on the other hand, who actually run the SBC because this is a bottom-up organization, that's the way it's supposed to be anyway, just want to only support the things that we support. We don't want to just be throwing money into things that we don't want to support. But he calls it expressive individualism. Okay, the money that the people give through our church need to be used for the things that the people in our church believe in. If there's things in the SBC that we don't believe in, we don't want to support it. Okay, I wouldn't call that expressive individualism. I would call that being efficient in an autonomous church. By the way, Southern Baptist churches are autonomous. Sometimes you hear people think that we're a denomination. We're not a denomination. It's autonomous churches manned together to cooperate in giving missions. When we do give to the IMB and NAM, IMB is the International Mission Board, NAM is the North American Mission Board. When we give to those, we are supporting missionaries. We cooperate with them, but they don't tell us what to do.
Cooperation means working willingly with people who do not agree with you on everything.
That's true. I mean, I don't care what it is in the church, whatever. Cooperation is working with people that don't agree with you on everything. But the question is, do we need to just be giving money to things in the SBC that we know we don't support? No, of course not. We want to put money in the places that are actually furthering the goal, furthering what we're trying to do as a church. So we want to put money places where we're actually going to be more efficient, more, better use for what we're trying to do as a church. Okay, now some people, I think, well, what he's getting here is that some people are trying to further themselves by changing the way they give. Now, that's really backwards, because if I was trying to further myself as a pastor of Eastlake, if I was trying to further myself, I would put all the money I could in the cooperative program, because that gets the people's attention. Wow, this church, if I ever wanted to run for president or something like that, they talk about, wow, this church gives so much money. Well, it takes away some of our clout in the SBC by us pulling our money back. But we're not about getting clout in the SBC. We're about how we can most efficiently use the funds that God gives to us. Okay, let's keep going.
Expressive individualism insists you have your way and only work with people who agree with you, or better, will reward you for your individual choices. Cooperation.
Okay, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, he's saying that expressive individualism is all about furthering yourself. Well, it's not about furthering ourselves.
Means you sacrifice to achieve common goals, not leverage gifts to enforce your personal preferences.
We're not talking about personal preferences here. We're talking about how do we best get the gospel to people. We don't want to support a massive bureaucracy that's spending millions of dollars. Earlier in the speech that we're not showing right now, he talked about how the convention this year voted to spend $3 million on some legal fees, which I did not vote for that. Some did. I don't think they realized what was going on. It kind of got lost in the shuffle. On legal fees for all this kind of stuff. We don't want to support that. We just want to support giving of the gospel.
Cooperation means you surrender control to fellow Baptists you elect, which is anathema to expressive individualists.
Okay, I don't know if you caught that. Let me read it. Cooperation means you surrender control to fellow Baptists you elect, which is anathema to expressive individualists. Now, first of all, how we elect, it's not like we elect every single person. We elect some people that are, on a ballot, and maybe, in the book, okay, let's elect this whole page of people. So it's not like every person, we've seen. So there's a lot of bureaucracy, and you can't. I mean, there's so many people that work in so many ways for the SBC. We can't sit there and vote up or down on every single one of them. We'd never get through the annual meeting. But to throw that in there makes it look like, hey, you elected these people, you don't trust them. Well, we're not voting on all of them individually. There's committees and everything like that. But the thing that really, really bothers me about this is he says cooperation means you surrender control to fellow Baptists. That is totally opposite of what Baptists are. We are autonomous. He's saying you need to surrender control to all of us who are not pastors, first of all, of churches, but are working in the SBC. You need to surrender control to us. That is so un-Baptist. We don't surrender control of anything in our church. That is totally opposite of what the Southern Baptist Convention is, but that is what he's asking us to do. He's pitting Baptist philosophy against expressive individualism, and that's totally backwards. Totally backwards. A fundamental tenet of being a Baptist is that we are autonomous as a church. We do with the funds what we feel we should do with the church. We don't just throw them up there and let somebody else decide. So it's totally opposite of reality.
The current tribalism and continuing reshuffling of sectarian loyalties in the SBC is a byproduct of this worldview shift. People demand their positions prevail. continually realign with others who share their perspective, and will only fund what they find amenable.
I would say what we find biblical, not what we find amenable, okay?
This creates an ever-changing kaleidoscope of collaborations demanding new funding channels. While we often encourage increased unified cooperative program giving, it is not likely to happen until a deeper theological and philosophical commitment is addressed that will determine our future.
So what they want is for us to commit to trusting the people at the SBC who won't even tell us what the heads of the entity, what their salaries are. I just have a huge problem trusting people like that. This was a big deal at the thing, and they have reasons, why, we shouldn't have transparency in what's going on. But if they want us to trust them, they need to earn it. I don't trust somebody just because they've been elected to a position. They need to earn it. Okay, show us what's really going on before we just start dumping money into what you want us to dump money into.
Southern Baptists must first recommit to cooperation, rejecting expressive individualism and the inroads it has made.
Southern Baptists must first recommit to cooperation. No, we first commit to the Bible and the autonomy of our local churches. Being in the SBC is about cooperation, but not blind cooperation.
We must reaffirm cooperation, not conformity, as the best biblical methodology for working together. We must reaffirm what I call the messiness of cooperation, particularly as we become more geographically, racially, economically, and politically diverse. We must reaffirm cooperation and then see funding it through one channel, the Cooperative Program, as its natural outflow. Our current conflicts might cause us to believe a call.
So wait a minute here. So he's saying that cooperation is messy because we're geographically, racially, economically, and politically diverse. That's not why we divert funds to other things. Because of all those, we don't want to just support everything that the Southern Baptists may be supporting. It's got nothing to do with economics or politics or anything like that.
Call for renewed cooperation is futile, but that ignores an amazing historical reality. It was when our denominational situation was bleak in the 1920s that an all-out commitment to cooperation produced the Cooperative Program and propelled us to remarkable growth. My dream tonight is that Southern Baptists will recommit to cooperation in all its messy splendor and focus on our overarching mission of getting the gospel to the nations rather than being preoccupied with lesser issues.
Okay, so getting the gospel to the nations is exactly the reason that we stopped just supporting the Cooperative Program straight out. We still do some, but not like we used to. That's he's telling us, if you want to give the gospel, you need to just put it all in the Cooperative Program budget. That's exactly the reason we stopped, because I pulled the numbers, and this is what I found out. This is for Indiana. Every state is going to be a little bit different, because if we were just to give the Cooperative Program, we give it to the state of Indiana, they spread it out. So of every dollar that we give just Cooperative Program money, we give it to the program, this is what happens. 64 cents stays in the state convention. Business administration, we have a camp, church leader development, executive services. This was 2 or 3 years ago I made these numbers, so maybe the percentage has changed a little bit. 0.001 cent goes to church planting. So basically what the 64 cents of the dollar doesn't go to missions. It goes to the state of Indiana for different things in our state convention. And then 36 cents actually goes out to the Cooperative Program. So every dollar we gave, 36 cents went to the Cooperative Program on the national level. Of that, 26 cents goes to IMB and NAM. And when I tracked this down, I found out most of that's for administration and things. It's not necessarily going to the missionaries. They're supported through Lottie Moon and Annie Armstrong. 8 cents goes to the seminaries and other educational institutions. 0.01 cent goes to the SBC Executive Committee, and 0.006 of a cent goes to the ERLC. So basically, 26 cents out of every dollar goes even to the two missions organizations, and that's for a lot of administration and stuff. So if you're going to tell me that we need to just drop all the money into the cooperative program to support missions, you're better off to pull it out and send it directly to IMB and NAM. That's what we're doing. So we're kind of getting lectured here for doing better the job he's asking us to do, but we're just not putting it in their budget, trusting them how to do it all.
In almost 50 years, as a Southern Baptist ministry leader, there has never been a time when I have been happy with everything we were doing in every SBC entity, state convention, local association, or church. And yet, despite my concerns, and yes, my occasional opposition to this initiative or that program, my commitment to cooperation has remained. Yes, as I've said before, I am willing to cooperate with some churches I would not join as a member. I am willing to support SBC entities, even when I have reservations about some of their initiatives. I am willing to remain in the SBC when we make unwise decisions at our annual meeting.
And some are made.
And yes, I am willing to commit these years of my life to challenging Southern Baptists to focus more on God's eternal mission than on minor denominational divisions.
Not sure exactly what he means by that.
My choices to do this eclipse other matters because of our greater vision of sharing the gospel with the whole world. Our overarching impact as Southern Baptists is so amazing and so positive. And if you've heard me speak anywhere in the last 18 months, you've heard me give the litany of all of that. It compels me to work together with as many Southern Baptists as possible to be a force for good. And that phrase, a force for good, echoes one of my earlier messages and motivates me in my work on your behalf. Our critics and detractors continually decry our efforts and point out our shortcomings, but they seem oblivious to reality. They ignore millions of volunteer ministry hours Southern Baptists devote each year to impact communities like yours. Tens of thousands of students enrolled in our universities and our seminaries. Thousands of missionaries sharing the gospel in hard-to-reach places around the world, and hundreds of church planters starting new churches across our country.
By the way, that's what we're doing more efficiently because we have not supported the cooperative program with all that money just dumping in there, but we've supported IMB and NAM and other things. And by the way, those missionaries get more money now than they did with us sending all of it to the cooperative program. That frees up some other funds that we use for things. When we had the floods in Texas, we sent a lot of money down there. We sent it to the SBC disaster relief in the area. We gave a bunch of thousands of dollars in gift cards to Home Depot and Lowe's, things like that, to a church down there. We were able to do those things because we're not just dumping it all into the SBC bucket. So we're actually doing a much better job with the funds that we have by changing it.
Yes, we have some problems, but they must be kept in proper perspective. We will always be an imperfect people, marred by sin and marked by sinful behavior. But even that admission defines us as a force for good, living examples of God's forgiveness and grace, which we offer to people in desperate need of that message today.
Okay, well, we'll stop right there. He's just finishing up his speech and, with some pleasantries and things like that. So again, I didn't want to make this just something, well, I don't like what Dr. Iorg is doing or anything. I just want to explain why we're doing what we're doing as a church. And I think our church has just loved it because we're able to support so many other individual missionaries and things with that same money. And we are actually having a much greater effect now than we were if we just pouring all of our money into the cooperative program budget. And apparently the people at the SBC, the executive committee, are catching this thing. Wow. And then suddenly it was a sexual abuse thing, which turned out to be just not like you hear about it. But people need to understand. By the way, if you watch this far with me and you're not understanding the SBC, I actually made a video about how it actually works, what it is. And there's so much misunderstanding about the Southern Baptist Convention. I'd like you to watch that if you could. So maybe that'll help. Maybe it'll be a blessing in some way. I don't want this to be, my channel here isn't discernment ministry. I'm battling against everything. That's not my point. But I just think we need to be vigilant and understanding, not just buying into what people tell us, but we need to think through it. That's why God gave us all brains. We are autonomous churches. We decide what we want to do with our funds. The Southern Baptists cannot tell us anything to do. The worst they can do is say, you're no longer part of the convention. That's fine. They have no control over us. So we're just going to use the funds that God gives us the best way that we possibly can. All right. I'll see you next time. God bless.